again. We are here to discuss another Facebook Live about the world of finances. And today we are going to discuss women and money, especially in honor of Women's History Month. So I am so excited to talk about this topic, and I am so excited to get to know our panelists. Just to let you all know, I have some amazingly talented and knowledgeable women joining me today, and they all happen to be Marine Corps spouses, active duty and retired, including myself. So this is so exciting that this is all inside of the family. So let's go ahead and get started with introducing the panel. So we have Miss Sarita Connelly. She is a retired United States Marine Corps spouse, whose spouse and brother-in-law retired after serving 25 and 26 years, respectively, in the Marine Corps. Sarita is a former financial advisor with over 19 years of investment sales, relationship management, trading, and advisory experience. Her investment background includes a diverse mix of institutional sell side, buy side, and private wealth experiences. She has about 15 years in the nonprofit sector oversight and serves as a board of director on several boards and as a nonprofit and DEI consultant. She is also on the Blue Star Family Chicagoland board of directors. Next, we have Charo Bates. She is an active duty United States Marine Corps spouse and a former military brat, just like me. And she is also the Applied Research and Social Impact Deployed Fellow with support from USAA. Chara has spent the majority of her professional educational career servicing military families as a program and project manager over clinical operations with military treatment facilities in the National Capital Region and working with the wounded, ill, and injured at the Wounded Warrior Regiment. So thank you so much for joining us, Charo and Sarita. And finally, we have Maggie Mesa. She is a retired United States Marine Corps spouse whose husband served over 30 years in the Marine Corps. She is the chapter director of the San Diego Blue Star Families chapter, and she has over 25 years of experience volunteering, advising, holding numerous executive board member positions, and fundraising for numerous organizations that advocate for military families. So thank you all, wonderful ladies, for joining me today. I cannot say enough about how much I appreciate you all being here today. And finally, just to let you all know again, my name is Brittany Aladitone, and I am the JP Morgan Chase Financial Wellness Fellow with Blue Star Families. And my background is in mental health and education, but I am definitely excited to talk about the world of finances. So, before we get into our discussion today, I want each of you to answer the following questions. What was instilled in you at a young age about money? Who imparted this knowledge to you? And how are you making sure to impart this knowledge to your own children, especially your daughters? And Sarita, I'm going to start with you, and then we're going to go over to Charo, and then finally Maggie.
Mm. Thanks so much for having me, Brittany. It is so great to be here, be reunited with Maggie Meza. I used to be a chapter director here in Chicago. So Maggie was someone that I worked with closely almost every day. So just great to support the San Diego chapter. My knowledge around money and savings was really supported by my mom and dad. My dad predominantly gave a lot of structure to it, gave a lot of structure because it started out with him buying my silver coins during my birth year, that set, and him always showing that to me and saving silver dollars for me, letting me collect them in a bank, and then opening my bank account, my first bank account. At age 6, he took me to a bank branch and sat me down at the banker there so I could understand what it was, the process of saving money. He made sure that I saw the savings bonds that he was buying for myself and my mom and him. And then coming down as I took over for his finances, I really got to see everything that he did. My parents were not educated. They had high school educations. They were blue collar workers. My father was a foreman at a steel company, and his second job was as a security guard. My mother was head of household and a nanny, so she was a domestic. And so they really, really saved. I saw all of the work that they were doing, but the most important thing that they taught me was about saving. And so, as I took over his finances, I really saw the depth of what he had done. He had a logbook, every month he logged in how much he was saving, how much he was investing, his life insurance policies that took care of my mother. And now that we have actually started using for her assisted living expenses. And so it was really my parents. And so now for me, with my daughter and my son, my daughter's 11, my son's 8. Everything that they get in terms of gifts of money, we have them invested. They know they have a college savings account for each of them, but they also they gift, right? They tithe. They use their own money for tithing on Sundays. The things that they love to do, my daughter loves to go to live dance performances. She contributes a little bit to her ticket. So she has that sense of ownership over her money. They are now both wanting to contribute their own money for their field trips. So it's very interesting, the revelation about really starting early. And until you asked me that question to prepare, I hadn't really thought about that foundation. So I really want to thank you for doing that.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Sarita. Sarita, that was awesome. What about you, Charo?
For me, my parents instilled into me the foundations and the importance of money. My dad did 36 years in the Marine Corps. My mom actually worked in banking for about 12 years before she went to government contracting. But they've always been very, very honest and transparent, especially, I guess, what socially we call kitchen table topics. Money was always one of them. And what it means to invest and set yourself up for success long term. And they constantly drilled it. But what I will say is, because we all go through certain phases in our life, being young and in my 20s, although I was given all this great knowledge and information, I didn't necessarily apply it until I would say I got towards the end of my 20s, and I decided I wanted to be a responsible adult. And I remembered everything they said, and it's that aha moment, right? When you're like, oh my gosh, that everything my parents said was actually true and right. This is how the real world works. Like, you have to really invest in yourself. And that means investing in your credit. That means investing in your future long term, whether it's through bonds, stocks, or real estate. But they always were so clear and transparent and answered everything. Even to this day, they are probably some of the most financially savvy people I know. My dad still actually balances a checkbook, which is a little mind-boggling to me and probably most of society, but he literally is so old school. He still balances a checkbook, but I love it. And it's just the truest form of that communication and being so open about it, because I feel like so many generations are so closed-mouthed about it, especially previously. My father growing up, they never talked about money. And it was something, it's still now kind of taboo and a little hush. But I love that they were always so open and transparent about it. And that's what we plan on instilling into our children. They're very young right now. Like, I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, so I don't know that they would receive it well, but we do openly discuss money around our children. And when the time comes, we will have those discussions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Charles. That is so interesting that he still balances the checkbook. Kudos to him, especially in this new day and new day and age of digital technology. All right, Maggie, what about you?
So I have learned through the years that I was an avoider of money, and it was how I was raised. We didn't talk about it. It was taboo at the table. We weren't allowed to ask how much our parents made. My parents did work. And then by the time I became a teenager and I wanted all the teenager things of a car and nice clothes, it was, then you need to get a job. So I worked very young, and then if I wanted to go to college, I needed a job. So those were the conversations that, lack thereof conversations, it was kind of dead end conversations that my parents instilled. And I was afraid of money. It made me afraid. So by the time I married my husband, and he was in the military and making this paycheck and budgeting it out, we learned some hard lessons, but we built on those and were able to get to where we are today. And ironically, he's a financial counselor now. So but for our children, I knew that I didn't want to have money be a taboo to them. So I made sure that we constantly talked about it. If it were, budgeting at the grocery store or clipping coupons, that's where my children were a part of that. And my daughters, they're young adults today. They're living on their own. And I hope they're doing okay. They do call their dad for advice, but that's where that's how I was raised. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much for everyone for your transparency and for sharing about your experience, when you were younger when it comes to money. I can honestly say that it was my mom who taught me, and she opened my first account with BB&T. I don't even know what bank that is now, but that was my first savings account. So I'm appreciative to my mom for, doing that and showing the importance of savings. So shout out to our parents, right? So let me share some facts about women throughout history when it comes to money with everyone. So a 1963 federal law prohibited gender-based discrimination in wages. The law mandates that equal pay for equal work by forbidding employers from paying men and women different wages or benefits for doing jobs that require the same skills and responsibilities. But the pay gap, as we know, has yet to close. And that was revealed last week during Equal Pay Day. Also, in 1974, the passage of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act granted women the right to obtain credit cards in their own names. 1974, you all. 1974 is not that long ago. That was the first time that women could obtain credit cards in their own name. And according to the 21st Annual Transamerica Retirement Survey of Workers from the Transamerica Center for the Retirement Studies report that women have only $4,000 in total household emergency funds. This is the median. So 77% of women are saving for retirement at work or outside of the workplace. Only 18% of working women are very confident that they will be able to fully retire with a comfortable lifestyle. And comfortable is defined by whatever you desire it to be as a woman. And only 17% of women frequently discuss savings, investings, and planning for retirement with family and close friends. 17%. So this is why we're here today, and this is why I thought that this topic was especially important, especially for our military spouses. So, ladies, after hearing these statistics, especially the last one, about 17% of women frequently discussing savings, investing, and planning for retirement with family and close friends. Why do you all believe that is such a small percentage of women discussing these things? And why is it important for women to do so and to do so often so we can increase the percentage? So I'll start with you, Charo, and then we'll go to Maggie and then Sarita.
So the data that you just revealed, I wish I could say I was surprised by, but I'm not, unfortunately. And I think the number is so low because, as you said, just in 1974, we were actually allowed to have a credit card in our name. So the conversations still aren't being had in a transparent manner. And women we're still catching up, right? Like everything that you just revealed just means we're still catching up. The comfortability level isn't there because we're still working on it. It's going to be a journey. And it's really unfortunate, but the more we discuss this, the more Facebook Lives that are happening and the more transparency and the moment we remove the taboo or the stigma or the idea that we don't belong in these conversations, the better it will get. And it's really disheartening and a little sad, but honestly, I'm hopeful for what it's going to get to at some point. And hopefully we just keep being able to have these conversations and being there for each other and supporting each other and sharing our insights and our knowledge. Because I think often, even with a lot of affinity groups that I'm a part of for military spouses, money doesn't come up very frequently. I do see a lot of posts about women being in situations where they're fearful that they can't actually leave their relationship because their husband is the primary breadwinner. And that is nerve-wracking and very scary. But I'm hoping with those conversations, we can also provide some sort of positive feedback and share our knowledge and insights of what's worked for us in a positive manner.
Thank you so much, Charo. I think we definitely need to have that conversation a lot more. Um, Seriously, the percentage needs to be increased. So, Maggie, I'm going to turn it over to you. What do you think? Why is the percentage so low?
Yeah. I think the percentage is low because money is an intimate conversation. It's very, as you saw here today, we were all raised differently about the value of a dollar. And so it's intimate. And we also live in a society where we're put in classes of our income. And it's how society views us of whether we're rich or not, right? So I think that that is why it's not spoken about so often. But I think the beginning to speak about it is here. But then for those of you that are watching, it's, hey, did you see this that Blue Star Families put out? Let's watch it together. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about start the conversation with, how were you raised to view money?
I 100% agree. I think that's definitely important. Like, even opening the conversation up the way we just did, talking about how were we raised, bringing in our parents, showing the different family dynamics of what we learned and didn't learn. So, okay, Sarita, do you have anything else to add? Why do you think it's so important for women to talk about this frequently? Why do you think the percentages are?
I think it can be cultural as well. I'm of an older generation. My parents were Depression era children. So they were of that mindset where they didn't necessarily believe in the banking system at first. And so that clearly changed as they were older. But I think in a lot of diverse communities, we still have older generations that, one, it's very taboo to speak about money. So I do feel fortunate that my parents showed me by actual experience, a practical connection, but still, I never knew ever how much my parents made or didn't make. That's not something you asked about. That's not something that you talked about. In diverse communities, I think you'll still find that that sort of that wall that's built up. And so if you're not invited to speak about those intimate details around finances, it's very difficult to feel comfortable in doing that. I do believe that that is beginning to change in the younger generation, right? Everything is out loud because of social media, because of fintech, because of these wonderful apps that you can, put on your phone and start investing and watch your credit. I think that this, in the younger generation right now, it's going to be different. So there's just a separation, right, between, baby boomers, Gen Xers, that people that are still at that, have that philosophy that money is not something that you speak about. And so the more networking opportunities that we have around women and wealth, whether it be in our military spouse communities or even outside of our communities, I think it's really important for us as military spouses to get outside of our military spouse community and have these conversations, because eventually our families transition out of the military. And so it's really important to have that support network as well.
Very important. I'm so glad that you brought up the cultural aspect, especially being that, Charo and myself are part of REI. That's, our whole that's everything that we talk about is, focusing, honing in on diversity. So culture definitely has a great part to play when it comes to talking about money and money being taboo and not discussing it. In different generations, there were a different set of rules, right, about how you discuss money or discussing what you made and whatnot. So that's very, very important. And Sarita, you already touched on a lot of this. I was going to ask, what are some tips that you all have as far as women starting this conversation, especially with close friends? Because sometimes it is kind of a little bit difficult to start with family, again, going back to the cultural differences. Maybe certain family, they're not ready to have this discussion. So let's stick to friends. How would you start this conversation with your friends? Any tips? And any of you can
Yeah.
answer this.
I think too, because we are networking so much. And I think it's, having that open invitation about, we've all we've gotten through COVID, and so many of us have had financial strains because of COVID. Even if, we're married to active duty service members and you have that foundation that that you're going to have money coming in every month. There are so many of us are two worker households, right? You need to have both, either parents in that household, the husband and the wife, working in order to get what we need. And so a lot of us lost that one side of that equation during COVID. And so I think utilizing the most recent experience is an excellent starting point in having these conversations. It's like, hey, how are you doing? It looks like, we're finally starting to normalize into the new normal. But, how did that affect you? Like, how did that affect your family? And then offer how it affected your family. I think offering up your experience first opens up a group of people to really start to share. And it is okay. It is okay to admit that everything is not okay. And I think that, that's another side that we're so hesitant to do. We're hesitant to show the struggles that we're having, but opening up about those vulnerabilities, I think, allows other people to feel open to sharing their own experience, and that's where the dialogue starts.
It's definitely okay to not be okay and to share that and be vulnerable. So thank you, Sarita. Any other tips from you, Maggie or Charo?
I would say
I agree wholeheartedly with Sarita that sharing your story, so many times I think we can get bogged down on social media of all the successes and it's great. It's great for people to feel good to share those. But I know that as military spouses, especially, we want to know that there's other people that have gone through something and experienced it. And how did that help you? And I just think that conversation is extremely important.
Thank you. And Charo, I think you were going to add something as well, huh?
Yeah, I will also say too, like as we mentioned before, we talked about kind of the stigmatization around it and the secrecy. I've never been a fan of secrets, and it's interesting because I think it hinders us. No one likes to talk about the wages or how much money you're making, as if it will like change the world or shift some sort of paradigm. It's insane, but like the transparency in that, being honest, like, hey, this is where I sit right now financially. This is the job I'm doing. This is how I got here. Let me show you how I did this, and you can work it as well. We've seen that it works in institutions where everyone knows how much you make. The military, it's not hard. You can Google it like tomorrow to find out how much everyone paid. Even in the government facilities, the same. If you're a certain GS level, we know your range is between this and this. And it doesn't seem to hinder, but I've noticed a lot on the civilian side that most people are like, oh, well, I can give you some secrets, but I'm not going to tell you how much money I make, because there's never a clear answer. You can go back and forth with people all day long and they'll say, well, I just don't want to share. But why? Well, I don't want to. If you can't truly find a concrete answer outside of the fact that it almost seems self-serving, I think you have to be like, okay, so am I really helping my sister next to me? Or am I helping the person in front of me? Like, who am I helping? Because I'm not helping myself. But sharing the knowledge, removing the secrecy, then maybe we can grow collectively. Like, it would be my hope and my thoughts.
I totally agree with you, Charo. I think that transparency piece is so huge. On the civilian side, there are a lot of people that don't discuss. But speaking of transparency, let's talk about this fact for a minute. So how can women feel confident about saving, about investing, about money, when it has been revealed that women make 83 cents on a dollar in comparison to men, right? And that's from a statistic of, 2021. So it only went up by 1 cent since 2020. Interesting, right? Just 1 cent. And equally important to know here that, again, going back to that diversity piece, Asian and Pacific Islander women make 75 cents on a dollar. Black women only make 58 cents on a dollar. Native women and slash indigenous women make 50 cents on the dollar, while Latinx women only make 49 cents on the dollar. This is according to a new report by the American Association of University Women. So this also translates, it has to be a retirement wage gap as well if there is a gap in equal pay. So Sarita, I'll start with you. How do you think women can feel more confident about this, about saving, about investing, and about talking about this when the statistics are showing you that you're not making as much as your counterparts? And then there's the division between race.
Mhm. Yeah, these are important data points to really look at, and actually these education, and this is another reason I'm so happy that Blue Star Families is doing this kind of forum. We've got to talk about this, the discrepancy on what we're earning, because if people don't understand that, they don't understand the second and third and fourth degree effects of that deficit. And so again, every time we can talk about this in these forums is important. And then it's the checkup and the check-in with our sisters and other military spouses, saying, what are you doing in the interim to prepare for your retirement? Right? Retirement seems so far away, but we all know that, time moves very quickly. And when you are investing for retirement, the sooner that you do it, the better. We need to educate our kids when they're in college, when they get their first job, that they need to immediately start investing in their 401k to the point that their employer will match it. Now, here's the problem with military spouses that have given up their careers and are out of the job market. You're out of that market. And so you are relegated to an IRA or a Roth IRA, which has a smaller annual limit that you can invest than if you were participating in an employer 401k and one that has a company match. And so, there were many times when my husband was active duty that I was unemployed. I could not get a cross-region transfer when I was a financial advisor. And so I made my income teaching group fitness. I didn't work in my industry. And I will circle back to my dad. My dad always had 2 jobs, and he always taught me to have a side hustle. And it's one of the most valuable pieces of information that he gave to me. But, again, when you have that side hustle, maybe that side hustle, I'm an adjunct at a university. And so that money goes into my 401k. And so, except for a small portion. So I'm using side hustles to catch up on my retirement. So I encourage you all to think about that. The other thing is, what about being self-employed, having your own business, because then you can set up your own solo 401k or a SEP IRA where you have those, you can catch up. If people are not going to give us the opportunity to be fully employed and fully paid, then we have to take some sort of responsibility. Besides being advocates to make sure that's changed, we have to take responsibility to make sure that we can catch up. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Sarita. I'm so glad that you mentioned entrepreneurship and having your own business, because I'm always harping on that. That is hugely important to me. And also, it is a Facebook Live that I had last year. So if you're on this now, make sure you go back to the November Facebook Live talking about entrepreneurship in the spouse community and how that is on the rise. And Sarita, you actually beat me to it as well. The next question was about 401ks. So I'm going to read some statistics here. So according to the MFLS 2021, military spouses face unemployment rates at 4 to 6 times the national average. And 68% of spouse respondents who are not currently working but are seeking employment also report their financial situation causes them some stress or a great deal of stress, compared to only 44% of their employed counterparts. Again, that's speaking to having that side hustle, being outside of your career field. Such as right now, even myself, my Charo and myself, we're not in our designated career fields for what we went to school for. So we're right along with some of these statistics. So considering the long-term employment challenges for spouses, right, and looking at money from a military spouse lens, what do you think male spouses need to do in order to prepare financially, Charo? Especially, as Sarita said, we move around a lot and we can't take full advantage of the job sponsored 401ks and the matches. It's just not there for us, for the majority of us, I would say. So what do you think about that?
No, you're absolutely right. It's not always there for us. We're not necessarily set up for success consistently. We have to almost set ourselves up for that. But what I will say is it's okay to just take a job that's not in your career field, like you and I are doing currently right now. It's okay to do that. And I know that's always devastatingly hard sometimes for military spouses, because we put so much time and energy into a field that we're passionate about that we're constantly sacrificing for because we're military spouses. So sometimes you have to give yourself the grace to know that it's okay. In the meantime, let me just do this until another opportunity opens up. It's not where I want to be, but it's what's going to bring me that stream of income that will make me feel more comfortable. Because honestly, I was taught, like Sarita, my dad always was like, have multiple streams of income, which I currently do. And a huge component of that is, God forbid any of this ever happened, but if something were to happen to my husband, and we all know that the military can swiftly transition you out. And if you haven't been working as a spouse, or you don't have anything setting you up for success, when your husband or your partner gets out, where's the money coming in? Most people don't know this. There's going to be a delay before you receive any form of compensation. So in that money time slot, like that time frame, what's happening? Where's the money coming in? You're going to end up in a really difficult situation. But if you already have multiple set streams of income coming in on yourself as the spouse, then you can breathe a little bit. And you will set your whole family up for success, at least until your VA benefits kick in, or if you're retired, until the retirement kicks in. And it does look different. All those extra benefits you were getting before, you're not getting them anymore financially. So it's going to be a huge blow and shift. So set yourself up for success. Some companies and organizations, one of the things I've learned as I've worked, it's not where you work, it's how they treat you in your environment where you're currently working. I worked for a phenomenal company for years, or what I thought was a phenomenal company for years, that paid me extremely well, but I was miserable because my environment was toxic. And then I took a huge blow salary-wise, and I worked for a company where I was so supportive and it felt like family. So really dig deep into that. I just added another stream of income to it, something that I had to figure out on my own, and dive into. But people really have to refocus on future aspects, like what is next? What can I do for myself? And it's not permanent. Sometimes it's just in the meantime, and that's okay. And I think we allow ourselves that grace and that knowledge in order to really get there.
That is definitely okay, to take a job that may not pay you as much, or really do something that you really enjoy. So thank you both for bringing out the importance of like that side hustle and having something else. So that's hugely important. And Charo, you went right into the next question about like retired spouses. And we have two of them here, but we have one, Maggie, who your husband retired as well recently. So since you are a retired spouse, what are key things that women spouses need to do in order to financially prepare for when their spouse retires or gets out of the military? And I know Charo kind of stole some of your thunder there, answering some of that, but I'm quite sure you have some more insight to add. So what do you think, Maggie?
Yeah, definitely. I think, the one thing is regardless of where your spouse is in their career in the military, it will come to an end, and you will have to prepare for that. And, if anything you take away from this is start saving, because of that, there is that pay gap from when you retire to when the benefits come in. And but you have to have full disclosure with your spouse. This is if you're retiring together or transitioning together, the conversation has to start. And I encourage you to attend the transition courses that are taught from the Department of Defense. They're chapter 1. They are not the end all that is all. They are chapter 1 on your journey. And then I think too that they have seen a need for spouses, so they'll have some spouse transition classes for you to attend. When my husband and I were going through the process, we attended the course 18 months from his retirement date, the first time. And then we went back 6 months before he retired. And there were things that we were completely overwhelmed with the first time that made sense the second time. So you are able to join those courses with your spouse. The second thing is you need to learn about the survivor benefit plan and where that fits into the retirement plan or transitioning. If this is the first time you've heard about it, this is a great way to start the conversation with your spouse. And there are many views on it, but I will say that when we were told about it, we were told that it's an investment. So you need to learn about that. The third thing that I'd like to bring up is that their financial institutions are offering free budgeting classes all the time for anything, for home buying, for transitioning, retiring. Take advantage of those. Seek it out in your own bank, or I know there's some financial classes that are taught on the bases as well. And then and part of that is they have military reps, right? They have military representatives, and they are all veterans, so they've gone through the process. They know what to look for and help you with. And then the other thing, because there's so many more, but I will tell you, going to those transition classes is chapter 1, but your ongoing journey with transitioning and retiring is through the veteran service organizations and the military service organizations like Blue Star Families that work to fill that gap and bridge that gap that the Department of the Defense does not tell you and does not provide for you. So as a chapter director, part of my job is to gather those resources. We collaborate nationally and locally with these organizations that help you. And, I just take advantage of them. It's free. It's free. And Sarita and I have both gone through this, and anyone can reach out to us. It was tricky. I wouldn't say we perfected it, but we're sitting here today. So I think that's positive.
Definitely so, Maggie. I think that definitely true. And thank you for bringing up the whole idea of like free courses, taking the free courses that the financial institutions offer, which is a lead into JP Morgan Chase has community managers across the United States, and they're continuing to hire for these positions. And not only that, these courses that they're offering at the bank is free. They have courses on financial education, budgeting, also small business ownership, if you want to take courses on that. They have all of these things. And again, it's free. You can go right into the community center, get comfortable, and get acquainted with the staff there and learn about the different programs that they have available for the community. So that is great. So I appreciate that, Maggie. Sarita, I want to hand it over to you. Do you have anything else to add since you're also a retired spouse?
Yeah, I want to circle back to something that Maggie said, which I think is really important about the insurance that you're able to look at when your service member retires, and it is an investment. And as you get older, insurance is more difficult to acquire at a reasonable outlay, and so you never know what kind of health incident will happen in your life, no matter how young you are. You could be in your 20s or your 30s and have some sort of incident that will preclude you from qualifying for life insurance, which means, if something happens to you or your spouse and you have children, how are your children going to be taken care of? What is that? That's a mode of wealth transference, right? If something happens, there is money that can go to make sure that the surviving spouse and family can stay in their home, can stay on track for their education, can start a business, can buy their first house, have a down payment. And so there are all sorts of things that you really do have to talk to your spouse about. Like, what are your dreams and goals for your entire family, not just for this next stage of your life as a couple, but how is this going to how are you going to set that goal for the entire family 10, 15, 20 years down the line? So I want to thank Maggie for bringing that up. I feel like that's a real important aspect to think about.
I highly agree. Thank you both for putting emphasis on that. And I wanted to read a comment from Mary in England. Thank you so much for watching, Mary. And she said, I attended a spouse brief years ago, and the presenter encouraged spouses to pay themselves monthly by way of an IRA. Being a stay-at-home mom is work too. Definitely is. Being a stay-at-home mom is definitely work. Sometimes more work than actually working. So yes, the IRA is definitely important. And she also said emphasis on an emergency fund and preparing well in advance was hugely important as well. So thank you, Marianne, for bringing up those points. I know we're nearing the end here, but I did want to make note of investing. And I wanted to talk about that because this is on the rise for women. And according to key findings from Fidelity Investments, their 2021 Women in Investing study, 67% of women are investing outside of retirement. So that's awesome. And for example, 71% of millennials are investing, 67% of Gen X, and 62% of boomers. So this is just incredible news, and I'm really excited that women are investing. So I want to ask you all, and you can answer if you feel comfortable or not. Do you all invest in the stock market? Do you invest at all? And what are your suggestions for starting this process when it comes to investing? And full disclosure here, I just started investing myself last year, like really getting knowledge and studying this and, listening to different outlets and buying my first stock. So that was important to me to really invest in an ETF that I believed in. So I'm proud of that 71% of, starting to invest as a millennial. But what do you all think? And I'll hand it over to you, Sarita, if you want to go first.
Sure. I think that's fantastic that you've started investing. As I mentioned earlier, it's so pivotal to start the savings and investing process early simply because of the time value of money, right? And historically, when you look at the equity market, over time, since tracking of the equity market or the stock market has begun, the trend line is up. Of course, we've had extreme volatility at certain points. We've had depressions, we've had the dot-com bust, you've had the Great Recession in '07. So you have these in the economic cycle, you do have these downturns where the market is going to not perform for you. But if you keep your money in the market over the long term, you will see the appreciation of that investment. Now, it all depends on where you are in your life cycle. If you are close to retirement, then you're going to pare down the amount of exposure that you're going to have to the equity market, to emerging markets or frontier markets, because those are all highly volatile investments. And so then you'll start to balance and bring it back down to something, your percentage in the bond market and bonds and individual bonds, municipal bonds, which are tax exempt, CDs, treasury bills, that will start to increase to preserve the principal that you're going to be living on. But if you are young, you can put it in an index fund that has low expenses and has multiple exposure as opposed to one individual stock. That's a beautiful thing about index funds, is that it's going to expose you to the entire index. And so, and the expense ratio will be lower than an active mutual fund per se. So you have to look at the expense ratios on if you're in mutual funds, because that takes away from the return of your investment as well. I'll stop there for now.
Thank you so much, Sarita. Anyone else? Did you want to chime in on this specific question?
I will. I will say, I echo everything Sarita said. All great avenues for investment. I think definitely take some time to really consider what you're interested in investing in. If you don't know, get with an advisor. First Command offers free advice. They'll sit down, they'll do financial counseling with you, they'll do investment counseling with you to give you an idea and an avenue and a stream. And one thing that my husband and I, we recently started, well, not recently, I want to say about 3 or 4 years ago, we started investing in real estate and purchasing homes that we will eventually lead to our children. But we also tried something, and only if you're comfortable with it, I do highly recommend it on the savings level. He and I decided to live off of one income, and it was his income. And so my money just went into savings and we didn't touch it. We put it in a bank account that's not even near us, and it would take us such like exorbitant measures to even get to. And everything went there for an entire year. And we just solely stuck to a very tight and strict budget and lived only off his. And that, to see at the end of that, the reward, the amount of savings you have, and then you kind of pluck it in little investments if you want to, or you can just allow it to build. And it was really, really rewarding and incredible. And it just kind of, it will allow you to continue to take off from there. So I definitely say, if you don't know anything about investments, definitely sit down and talk, but then also figure out a good strategic savings plan that you guys can do together. And vision boards. I love vision boards. I think they're great for financial means too.
Vision boards are definitely important. And Charo, thank you so much for being transparent and sharing that with us. And awesome. So smart of you all to live off of one and then just pretty much save what you're making. That is such a great idea. Maggie, do you have anything else to add?
We've been investing for a long time. When you read my bio, the 25 years of volunteering was just that. I didn't get paid for my work until I started at Blue Star Families. And just the joy that it brought me to be able to contribute to that, our future, because we are in our second chapter of life and it's completely different than what the military was. But I look at it as financial independence, and I really see how I remember being stressed out about money, but now that I'm earning it and investing, I really see it differently, and I see our financial independence and how stress-free that is.
Definitely. It is wonderful to have that financial freedom and not to stress about money. So I agree with you there, Maggie. I wanted to read one more comment for someone in the audience, Elan Enriquez. She said index funds are a great investment for newcomers to the market. Dividend paying stocks as well are a great ways to build wealth over time. Great point, Elon. Thank you so much for pointing that out. And we're nearing the end of our time here. So I thank you, wonderful ladies, for answering all of these amazing questions and having this amazing discussion with me and being vulnerable and transparent about money. Because as women, we definitely need to increase that 17%, raise that up to 100% of women are talking about money and investments and savings with family and close friends. But before we end here, is there any other resources, tips, anything that you might be doing that you want to share with the audience before we get off here? Is there anything that you want to share?
I would love to share one just in the chat. When I do coaching, I used to work, full disclosure, I used to work for UBS, but they have an incredible women in investing platform, and they've got a workbook that you can take your own time and go through. It's 99 pages of information about savings, investments, how to plan, and then again, reach out to, an expert in your area. Your bank branch has people that can help you. There are lots of advisors close to you that can actually help you. And again, like Maggie said, a resource. And then if you're interested in entrepreneurship, I advise for the Veteran Business Project, and you can actually click on the screen. They've dropped a bit.ly piece in there, you can sign up for free resources. We are also funded in part by JP Morgan Chase. So I'm so glad for the support that they give us. They actually support us for BIPOC support of military connected communities. So sign up. You'll start to get our emails. We will have national events. But if you just want to talk to a coach or counselor about getting into entrepreneurship through business acquisition, we are here to help you. So feel free to reach out to us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing those resources. I really hope that everyone goes and checks them out. Maggie, is there anything you want to share, or any last tips or resources or events that may be coming up at the San Diego chapter?
Right. So Month of the Military Child is starts tomorrow. Goodness. And so we'll have some exciting events in all of our chapters. I will say that, you can start at bluestarfam.org and see all the fun things that we're doing, and then how you can reach out to a local chapter. We have 11 chapters across the nation who work diligently to gather those resources and host those events for you. So, it's just, we're one click away. So.
Yay, Month of the Military Child. So exciting. Shout out to all the mill kids and the former mill kids, including myself and Charo. So shout out to all of us. Charo, do you have anything that you want to add? Any last tips, resources, anything that you want to share with the audience?
Nothing that I can think of. I think I touched on everything that I thought was important and necessary, but I guess is another, from one mill spouse to other mill spouses out there, just remember to invest in yourself and don't be afraid to have the conversations with your partner, your spouse, about money. It seems a little intimidating at first. Even if you're not the one bringing in the income, you should still know everything that's happening with it. So put yourself in the conversation, even if you have to carry your own chair, but definitely do it.
I definitely echo that. Make sure you're having that conversation. And thank you all so much for joining us today. Do not forget to go to bluestarfam.org. We have a ton of resources. Join our membership. There's a financial page as well. They list all of these resources about military spouse entrepreneurship, about the taxes that are upcoming. The previous Facebook Lives are also on that landing page, so please be sure to check that out. Also, shout out to JP Morgan Chase and everything that they're doing, especially sponsoring Veterans Business Project and what you guys are doing for BIPOC families there in the Chicago area. And in addition to that, also Women on the Move. JP Morgan Chase has that as well, where they're zeroing in on women and money. And also, lastly, I want to put a plug out there for the Rei Fellowship. Charo and myself and the other fellows, our time is coming to an end, and they will be on the lookout for a new fellow. So if you are out there and you want to join this program, look in the employment and career sections of Blue Star Families and apply. We would definitely love to have you. I can't wait for the next person to be in the seat and host these Facebook Lives to talk about finances. It's an amazing opportunity. So thank you all so much for joining us today, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.